Patrick. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. My name is Marissa Eastman, and I am the Skills Development Coordinator for the Catalyze Program. The Catalyze team is very excited to announce the launch of the Preclinical Services Program, which is a new offering through the Catalyze Program that supports preclinical development activities from end-stage proof of concept through preclinical development and U.S. regulatory submission. And today's presenter is the Catalyze Scientific Director, Dr. Pieck, who will talk in detail about the Preclinical Services Program and answer any questions that you have. And as a reminder, before we get started, today's presentation is being recorded and will be available with a copy of the presentation slides on our website, nhlbicatalyze.org/events. And Mike, whenever you're ready.
Thanks, Marissa, and thank you all for joining. We have a great attendance today, so I'm excited to present a little bit about the Preclinical Services Program and hopefully answer some of your most important questions. So the Catalyze Program, or the Preclinical Services, is part of the overall Catalyze Program, which supports the NHLBI's vision and mission by providing a bridge from basic research to clinical research, and also has a secondary focus on enabling our workforce to be more fluent and in product development and entrepreneurial understanding and skills. To do this, we've taken a coordinated approach where from right out of your basic research, we have a program to help you develop those early stage technologies, all the way to this program, circle number 5 here, where we're going to help investigators get over that final hump to FDA clearance so they can start the clinical trials and get into the marketplace. Some other high marks of the programs is a focus on, leveraging our investments by forcing or encouraging investigators to go out and search for non-federal funds. And at the individual project level, you will be supported and wrapped around with technical support and business support to help kind of unravel some of these technical challenges you may have along the way. And again, this is a pilot program, so we are learning along the way and both disseminating those lessons learned, but also changing the program to meet the needs based on feedback. As Marissa mentioned, the Catalyze program consists of both a product definition program and now, with the launch of this program, the preclinical services model. So for the product definition, we have 5 related funding announcements that are grant funded up to 3 years of support. And the idea is to support those early stage projects that can then graduate and become part of the preclinical services. But as you'll see, the preclinical services is also available to innovators who have not been through the product definition grant funding program. So just for reference, there are 5 related grant funding mechanisms available to innovators. We just had our last application deadline closed yesterday. The next one will be in July. And as you can see, there's a variety of support available and funding. Up to 3 years, as I mentioned, for developing your technology. And again, this program is available to all US-based for-profit and nonprofit institutions. So just a little bit about the Coordinating Center. So the Coordinating Center supports both the product definition funded grant awardees, and it will also support our preclinical services. And because of the wide array of the heart, lung, blood, sleep technologies coming into the program, they have an amazing technical staff that can support everything from drug development, medicinal chemistry, to engineering to help with device and diagnostics. In addition, they have a really strong regulatory affairs group that helps all of our investigators better understand what the FDA is expecting when they're developing their studies, but then also helping some of our later stage projects prepare for meeting with the FDA. And in addition, they have a specialized business group called the Innovation Advisors, who have played a pivotal role in helping some of our earlier stage teams better understand customers' needs and also how their technology may fit into the current market landscape. And of course, as Marissa mentioned, this is also a teaching program. So this webinar series is one of many type of skills development projects we have going on to help support investigators. So back to the preclinical services. So again, this is for those later stage studies that are essential for either a pre-IND, IND if you're therapeutic, or likewise with a device or diagnostic, in preparation for that first FDA interaction to allow you to start human studies. The focus is on really on these kind of gap filling studies where the NHLBI can play a key role in helping investigators maintain their trajectory toward the FDA, either by one study where the FDA, they've already met with the FDA and the FDA is asking them to go back and complete the study in a specific animal model or a different test, or indeed, new preclinical projects that have a long timeline to get to the FDA. We're also open to support some of those projects as well. Again, the focus is on, not only providing these technical services to you, but also ensuring that while we are doing these services on your behalf, that you as the investigative team are preparing commercially to help the technology advance toward ultimate commercialization and adoption. And the first bullet there, we'll go through a little bit in a few slides, the basic expression of interest form, and then the online full application form that'll be available. So just to kind of set expectations of what kind of studies we are preparing to do and what data we expect you as the applicant to provide to us as kind of a minimum threshold to be eligible for these projects, for the preclinical program. So if you're a small molecule or drug, we want to make sure that you have some data to demonstrate that you are modulating a target or indication within the heart, lung, blood, sleep disease area. We want to see that you have narrowed down your lead series to about 3 compounds, with the idea being that this program will help you develop and winnow it down to that final single lead molecule. We need some in vivo efficacy data by the same route of administration that you plan to use in humans. And similarly, we want some toxicology and ADME type of data also presented. Likewise with the biologics, again, we want to make sure that you have some route of delivery for a heart, lung, blood, sleep indication, that you have, again, winnowed down or, narrowed down your selection to maybe 2 agents rather, with the idea being that this program will help you identify that final agent to then get into human testing. And again, some documentation of the source material, some preliminary ADME information, and also preliminary data related to manufacturability and scalability and reproducibility, in fact, across, batch to batch, for example. So down the lane again for tissue engineered products here, we want some biocompatibility testing already to be established, some characterization of cells to include, as I mentioned here, sterility. And then for scaffold architecture, the mechanical properties and kind of the quality controls to demonstrate again from batch to batch that these mechanical properties have been consistently developed and provided. And again, some information about the manufacturing, GMP, shelf availability, and shelf life testing as well. And finally, for our medical devices, a whole list of similar type of expectations, some safety data, for example, verification of the prototype is complete, your design history file has been created and is ready for, our technical team to help provide additional support to. And again, other types of preparing for that scale up and manufacturing. So have you done some testing on shelf life, sterility, et cetera? And, some of the things that we're doing with our product definition studies is, the device human factor and usability testing has been established. So the good news is if you do not meet these criteria, you most likely qualify for our grant funded product definition RFAs. So again, the whole goal of this webinar is to reach out to you all so that you can reach out to us and tell us about your technology, and then let us help you identify the best part of the program that fits where your technology needs are. So moving on a little bit to the application process. So as I mentioned, the expression of interest form is live on our website. I'll show you that in a second. So after this expression of interest time period, which closes March 17th, the Catalyze Coordinating Center Preclinical Program and NHLBI will get together, review all the expression of interest forms, and identify the highest priority areas for the NHLBI, and invite those applicants in for a full application. This full application will be open for roughly 30 days for you to submit it online, followed by an external peer review and an internal NHLBI programmatic review, as well as a review by our commercialization readiness board or review board rather, to identify which projects have the most commercial potential or are the best investment for the NHLBI based on the data provided. Following this selection process, we will negotiate and meet with the investigator to kind of go over which milestones will be conducted, preclinical services will be provided, and then also discuss a little bit about the commercial milestones that will be expected. And of course, all this is the caveat that it is dependent on funding availability for both this fiscal year and future fiscal years. All right, so I'm going to walk through a few high marks of both the expression of interest form and then the full application. And then I'll actually show you the PDF version so that you have a familiarity with it. So the expression of interest form is a very basic form, and as described, it's you telling us that you have something that's pretty cool and you want to help, you want support either from the technical studies, preclinical studies, CMC manufacturing, or maybe you're ready to go meet with the FDA, but you need assistance preparing your documentation, or you need someone to discuss what data you have and maybe what data you may be missing. And all this is in one section. And again, an idea of what type of IP or IP strategy you have for your technology. So all expression of interest forms will receive feedback from the Catalyze Preclinical Program, either as an automated email to tell you that we received your form. And then once the program closes, within 30 days of March 17th, so by mid-April, you'll know whether or not you've been invited in for a full application. We still don't know exactly how many applicants we're going to get. So that's why there's a big number and maybe a question mark of how many expression of interest forms we're going to invite for a full application. So the full application, as it's described, is a little bit more detail. We've, done some pilot studies and gotten some feedback both from some practice applicants and some practice reviewers on things that they'd want to see more of. And basically there's three additional sections that will be populated, that you'll need to populate in addition to the information you provided to us in the expression of interest forms. These include section 4, where you will tell us about prior NIH funding or other support that's helped develop the technology. In section 5, it's going to be the meat of the technical information and preliminary data, to include if you're doing a small molecule, what the structure looks like, or how the strategy you developed to identify that lead series or lead compounds. Some of the market assessments, landscape, commercial strategy, and again, regulatory and IP. So what is your current understanding of how it will be regulated? What's competitors out there? What's the opportunity? In section 6 is where you're going to describe where you are now from your technology, all the steps you need to take to get to that FDA clearance, and then beyond that, what steps will be needed to get to the final FDA marketing approval. And in particular, we've developed a table within the online form where you'll describe all the key technical go, no-go decisions for the preclinical services that you're requesting from us. And of course, as every investor knows and reviewer, it is not always about the technology, it's sometimes about the team. So we'll have a section where you can describe your team as it stands now, as well as let you tell us about any external partnerships you may have with either large pharma, industry, investors, or other type of small businesses even as well. All right, so that's the basics of the full application. So there's a few things that even if you are hoping to be, even if you don't know if you're ready, there's certain things that you can do now to help, get yourself prepared. So one, look at the review or the PDF version of the applications so that you're familiar with what information you'll be expected to provide. This is going to be an online form, so it may benefit you to write out your answers in a word processing document so you can cut and paste them in. Importantly for us, so that we can move quickly, should we want to fund you, we want you to go out and get a quote from a US-based CRO, CMO, or vendor. This helps us, one, identify which projects are ready to go, and also helps us understand what is the likely cost of the study, so that we can, budget appropriately with our pilot money here. We strongly encourage you to develop a pitch deck. And if you need a reference, Steve Flame from the Innovation Office had a webinar about a year ago on how to develop a pitch deck. So please take a look at that. And excuse me one second. And also, we expect or highly encourage, you to go out and find an accelerator partner that can help you develop the technology beyond the preclinical services. This can be a small business who's interested in licensing the technology and may, advance it toward, through clinical trials. It could be just a traditional accelerator who's going to help you incubate the technology until you as an applicant either determine you want to start up your own company or figure out another type of entrepreneur to take it over. And then we're also looking for evidence of any non-federal funds from the last 12 months or any commitments of investment contingent upon receiving services from the preclinical Catalyze program. And again, like the grant-funded piece of the Catalyze program, non-matching funds are not required. They're more of an expectation and something that, if you aren't able to do it, we will help you develop the skill sets or the team to go out and try to find some of those funds. So the last piece of my brief slide presentation, before I show you some of the documents, is we have an eye toward commercialization and developing these technologies to help patients, right? So to do that, we know that there needs to be a commercial pull for these technologies. So as a trade-off for you receiving the preclinical services from the NHLBI Catalyze program, we're going to work with you to develop commercial milestones that you as the investigative team will need to complete in exchange for this support. And kind of as a clear go, no-go decision at the end of the first year, let's say, if you are unable to meet the commercial milestones, we may pause the technical support until you're able to complete these. And you'll have an opportunity to work with the innovation advisors. And I'm showing one of their tools over on the right, the iCanvas, which Moline Pandayama presented at a prior webinar down there at the bottom. And again, this is just a way to work with you as an investigator to kind of assess your technology readiness, but then also your commercial and business readiness, and help you figure out where your gaps are and where you need to work on from a commercial perspective. And for further support of this, you'll have access to the NHLBI's Entrepreneurs in Residence team, and they have a vast array of skill sets, include investors, one's an investor or several investors, and listed here the whole spectrum of business type of support that you may need access to as you develop your technology. So with that kind of brief overview, the goal of today was mainly to be Q&A more so than me just speaking. So I just want to walk through kind of a few more things. So if you have not found our website yet, so nhlbicatalyze.org/preclinical is the place to go. And here you'll see the expression of interest form and also the full application. And just to walk through, again, this is a very basic form by design, just some biographical information. And then kind of at the section 3, as I mentioned, you to tell us what your technology is, what you're trying to do, and what services you're requesting. And then for the full application, just to walk through again, these will be these first 3 fields will be populated already because you gave them to us as the expression of interest form. And just going through very slowly, if you have a prior grant award and the amount, we want to know about that. If you participate in some of the NIH's other product definition programs, we do that just to track which programs are kind of coming to us. And then again, just for, the basis of the project, basic information about the background, market size, unmet need, all the things that we expect you to have some sort of idea about and justification of why you need support from the NHLBI. And then finally, as I mentioned, the project plan is describing where your technology is now and all the steps you think it needs to get to the FDA clearance. And then beyond that, what steps will be needed to get it market approval. So with that, I'll just kind of, as a reminder, this closes on the 17th. Can't strongly suggest enough that getting a quote from a US-based CRO or CMO that is recent is going to help us figure out which studies are best suited for us to support right away, and which ones, even if we like them, are going to take a little bit longer to kind of identify both the cost structure and who can actually do the work. As a reminder, this is open to all US-based academic, nonprofit, and for-profit institutions, and some of the contact information is there below as well. And with that, Patrick and Marissa, we can open it up for questions and get to the other part of the conversation. Thank you.
Okay, Mike. So the first question here, are the criteria described for responsive versus non-responsive application in Catalyze R33 same for this new preclinical services program?
So this is supposed to be the next stage after the R33 program. So the criteria that I described in the slides are hopefully the endpoints that you're getting to at the end of the R33 phase. So this is the continuation and not the same as the R33 program.
Okay, next question here. In the past, applying to the Catalyze program required a commercial partner with some level of funding commitment. Has that changed?
So we reissued the RFAs at the beginning of 2022. And based on feedback from various applicants from around the country, the requirement of funds has been removed, and we now just have an expectation of fundraising. Fundraising is an important part of this program and important for the success of these technologies make it to the marketplace. So we are taking a more tailored approach to working with the investigators to, if you're a small business, you have a CEO, then yeah, we expect you to be able to go out there and raise funds. If you're an academic faculty free company, then maybe your commercial milestone is to either figure out if you want to start a company or work with your tech transfer office to help market your technology more effectively.
Are you considering orthopedic implant companies?
So I think we have a few of those in the heart, lung, blood, sleep space. So I think if it's within the heart, lung, blood, sleep focused area, it may be eligible. And again, this webinar is to remind all the attendees to talk to us. We like to speak to you and learn about your technology. And then we can figure out what is the most appropriate funding mechanism or stream for your technology.
Okay, next question. Will the company be able to use the CRO, CMO that gave them the quote, or will Catalyze find a different CRO, CMO?
Maybe I'll ask Diana to go over RTI's process for vetting CROs.
Sure. So I think the short answer for that is it depends. We would certainly, in cases where PI came into the program or was accepted into the program and had been working with a CRO for an extended period of time, either that CRO had done maybe tox studies previously or had done manufacturing previously, it would probably be easier and less expensive to move forward with the CRO that provided the quote and they may have worked with. If they have a quote from a CRO with whom they may not have worked before and has no experience with the product, then we would probably be bidding out to several different organizations to see how the cost compared to the quote that was submitted. There's also a qualification process that we do internally to ensure that the vendor being used meets the standard qualifications and has experience in providing reports and documentation sufficient for regulatory submission. So that's sort of the long answer. We certainly will try to use CROs you may have worked with in the past, but we can't guarantee that.
Thanks, Diana. And just to follow up on that, so we are generally not giving funds to investigators, right? So we're thinking that most of this work will be done through a contract research organization or similar. If there's a rare case where the work is to be done in the investigator's lab, you'll want to contact us before you apply, just so that we are aware of the situation.
Okay, next question. After March 17th, is there a date expected that EOIs would be accepted?
The quick answer is yes. So we needed to get some sort of first cohort in through the door, and we'll learn something from how, you know, if 30 days is sufficient to get a good number of applications in. After the first kind of round, we anticipate having the EOI form available at any time, and then just have 1 or 2 targeted areas where we're receiving full applications, but that's still to be determined.
Does Catalyze offer matchmaking services to help us find a CRO or CMO that would be good to contact for a quote?
So matchmaking, I'm not sure about that. So I know RTI has several example templates that investigators can use to help identify quotes. And again, this is probably a situation where you want to contact us and explain your situation, and maybe we can help you.
Yeah, so, you know, we have people in the coordinating center team with experience from manufacturing to regulatory toxicology. And so if you're applying and you really don't know who to reach out to from a CRO or CMO standpoint, we'd be happy to have a quick conversation and maybe give you names of a few potential CROs or CMOs that you might want to consider.
Okay, will applicants be looked at more favorably if they've already secured non-federal funding?
Great question. Our EIRs would tell you that that is demonstrating market pull, and so you're maybe more likely to be successful in getting your technology commercialized. However, we also know that there are some rare diseases that we support and other types of technologies where it's really difficult to raise funds. So we're taking a kind of broad spectrum approach to make sure that the portfolio of the NHLBI within the different divisions is supported broadly, but then also we're keeping an eye toward, you know, our roles as the federal government supporting some things that don't have a large commercial market, but are still an unmet need for our mission.
Okay, is this only open to US-based companies, or are UK-based companies eligible?
This is only open to US-based companies.
If we have a preclinical service technology and we already have a non-exclusive license executed with a CRO, is this still of interest to the program?
Diana, what are your thoughts? I'm having a hard time understanding the question.
So I'm assuming that what they're saying is they have a product and they've licensed it to another company. If they're pursuing it, another indication, or there is expansion of its use, perhaps to other organizations, or they going to continue its development for other reasons, I would assume it would be eligible. I'm not sure I completely understand the question, but
it sounds like contact us and let's have a conversation is a good answer.
Okay, does the applicant need to be a current or past NHLBI awardee, or can they have, for example, an SBIR grant from another NIH institute, but the device or molecule also has relevance for the NHLBI mission space?
There's no prior funding requirement. The only requirements are that you meet the, geographic requirements of being US based, and that the technology is within the heart, lung, blood, sleep space, and it's at the appropriate stage of development for preclinical services.
Okay, can funding be obtained before matching funds have been received?
So the answer, yes. So we are considering all options. But again, if you are a small business already or a small company and you have a CEO, most likely the commercial milestone for that first year will be go out and fundraise and try to get some matching funds in the door. But it's not a requirement for applying.
Okay, we have already selected the one compound to go forward. Would we still be eligible?
Sounds like yes, but again, contact us and let us know what you're doing.
I think we missed one question. Do you need to be a current Catalyze awardee to be eligible? And the answer to that is no. It's open to anyone, those both within the program and those external to the program.
Okay, let's see. What if the manufacturing step is completed with no CMO needed and a pilot clinical trial is planned at an academic center with no CRO needed?
So this program is not available for clinical trials. You'd be better off in one of the NHLBI's early clinical trial funding mechanisms.
Okay. Next question. What is the deadline for application? Was it yesterday, as you mentioned? Then, if so, what is the deadline on March 17th?
Sorry if I confused you all. So the product definition grant funding mechanisms for early stage development, that deadline was yesterday. The next deadline for the product definition grant funding mechanisms are in July. The preclinical services expression of interest form is due on March 17th, and that's specifically for requesting preclinical services that we covered today.
Okay, next question. I already have an antibody made by Lonza in its proprietary vector. This was done in a CHO pooled cell line. We did a lot of preclinical work with this antibody. Will we have to start production all over with a US company, as Lonza has facilities in both the US and England?
Again, I think we'll have to talk offline to make sure you meet the eligibility, and then we'll try to figure out the kind of technical requirements of US based versus external production.
Can the CRO service be preclinical efficacy studies?
Yes, that's what we're hoping to support.
What is the expected timeline of decision and then funds reimbursement?
So there's no funds reimbursement. We are doing the studies on your behalf. And the goal is to make our kind of first cohort funding decisions by the mid-July. So after full application selection, and then hopefully by mid-July, we can verify and qualify the CROs and get the studies funded in the next few months after that.
Would similar timeframes for EOI and full submission cycles be anticipated for next year?
Yeah, so again, as I mentioned, this is a new program. We have, we're trying to figure out what is the best time frame for an EOI open receipt date or open submission. And then, we'll learn a lot about how long it takes us internally to review, qualify the CROs and get the funding out the door. So it may be adjusted a little bit based on lessons learned there.
Okay. Is the Catalyze program appropriate for a company working on developing a biologic to treat blood cancer, or is cancer out of scope?
Most likely, cancer is better supported by the National Cancer Institute. We do very little in the blood cancer space.
Are you able to work with companies outside of the US regarding the technology?
So you're allowed to work with companies outside the US. And again, it just depends on making sure that it complies with NIH and US State Department regulations on, foreign components. However, for the most part, we're focusing on doing all of the work within US-based vendors, CROs, CMOs. But if you have a technology partner who is outside the US, that's certainly we can discuss and provide guidance on how to get that entity cleared through the State Department.
Is there a budget limit, or can you share a target budget range?
There is no budget. We have funds available for services, and that's all we are sharing at this point. And we'll work with the investigator to make it fit within our funding range, or let you know that it's out of scope or out of budget for us to support.
Can the application come from the academic PI or the accelerator partner?
Really either. For the most part, this is still technology development, so the academic scientist is usually the better applicant. But if it's a team, we like teams, especially if it's an accelerator partner already. So just make sure that if it's the accelerator partner, that it has the correct technical team to support the future technology development.
Can the application be for GMP, CMC, and toxicology, or just focus only on one thing?
So in part of the application, we want to know what is your understanding of what it's going to take to get the technology from where it is now to FDA clearance, and then what is your understanding of getting from the FDA clearance to that final, market approval. So you can request the whole pipeline of services, and then we'll work with you to adjust which ones we want to support now and where we can kind of draw an obvious line to have you go out and find funds elsewhere to support the development.
So we are a UK headquartered company, but have a US satellite office, and all work would be conducted in the US. Are we eligible to apply?
So I think from the NIH perspective, you have to be a US owned company. And again, if you want to contact me, we can try to figure out if you are eligible based on the NIH's requirements.
Can you share the PA web link related to this opportunity?
So the web link is NHLBI-catalyze.org/preclinical.
Will applicants with a SBIR be considered more or less favorably?
Good question. So the Catalyze program, as I mentioned, is open to any US-based or US-owned for-profit or nonprofit institution or entity. There is a very robust SBIR program, and for the most part, we're going to encourage small businesses to go apply for an SBIR instead of Catalyzed. But there may be cases where you completed your SBIR phase 1, and there's a key piece of data or something missing that is preventing you from getting a competitive phase 2 SBIR score. So in those cases, we may consider it. Or if you're an SBIR funded company and you have a new product coming online, we're certainly open to help support some of that preliminary development of that.
Okay. Do CROs need to be US based even if an external CRO has done significant work at lower cost?
For the most part, just based on complying with, U.S. State Department regulations and NIH's kind of focus, we're mainly focused on U.S.-based CRO or activities. If there's an exception, then we may try to figure out how best to adjust or work within the State Department's requirements.
Would you please review the submission and review timeline?
Sure, let me just go back a slide here. All right, so on the left, expression of interest forms are due by March 17th. Within a month, we will identify the EOI teams that we want to submit a full application. So that's by the end of May, we will have all of our full applications submitted. We hope to, in external and programmatic review, complete that by mid-July. And by mid-July, we will hopefully get to the final red arrow with negotiating milestones with the applicant and initiating the studies through our vetted CROs.
Has there been a budget per year set for the awards?
There's no budget per year set for the awards.
Can you give us?
Sorry, Patrick, I will qualify that this is a pilot program with a modest budget, so we are strategically trying to identify a few studies to experiment with and see if this new program is effective at advancing them toward FDA clearance faster.
All right, Mike, I think I'm taking over on the question asking, so please let me know if we've gone over this one. Can you give us more information on what the CRO should be doing for a preclinical study? Some examples would be great.
Does anyone want to take this one?
Sure. So this can vary hugely. It could be requesting large animal efficacy data. It could be requesting dose range finding data, so early tox study. It could be requesting a GLP tox study. It could be for animal studies, testing your device in vivo for the first time. So there's a lot of variability there and flexibility in what you can request.
Great, thank you. If we have in vitro data of efficacy and mechanism of action, but no in vivo data yet, are we still eligible?
So that sounds a little early, and you'd be more likely eligible for the R33 phase of the program, where you'd get 2 years of funding to complete the animal studies. Usually a small animal study in preparation for a large animal study.
Under the Preclinical Services Program, are both in vitro and in vivo animal studies covered?
So again, similar to the last question, if you still need in vitro work, then you're probably too early for the preclinical program, and you're more well-positioned for the product definition program. And please reach out for more information.
Do you know when the next cycle will start with EOI deadline?
Great question. So again, we're learning from this first, cohort, and we anticipate having a second. So the EOI form will be up and ready when available. We'll just have to figure out, based on this first cohort, when the next funding full application cycle will be. So stay tuned.
This question is a bit particular, but can the product be a digital health software diagnostic measuring a digital cardiovascular ECG?
Sounds appropriate.
Is this Catalyze grant awarded to the CRO or CMO or to the commercializing entity? If it is to the commercializing entity, will it be considered taxable revenue?
So again, this is services. So you're requesting for the Catalyze program to do preclinical services on your behalf. There will be no funds submitted or given to the applicant or commercial entity for that.
After phase 1 SBIR, what kind of data will you need for considering participation?
So again, depending on the technology type, there are certain expectations of having some efficacy data in an animal model, as discussed. Again, at the end of a phase 1 SBIR, you're demonstrating feasibility, and for some reason that should hopefully be enough to make you eligible for a phase 2 SBIR, which is probably more appropriate.
Oh boy, my Zoom just quit. I hope you can still hear me. Do you have a list of approved or preferred CMOs that we can reach out to for quotes?
Do not, but again, reach out to us and we'll get you in touch with the coordinating center to help you identify our appropriate strategy for reaching out to CROs.
This participant said, I think one slide said an expected requirement for this program is device packaging, shelf life, and sterilization data. Can you clarify how extensive this should be, since usually this is something I would think the CMO would do?
So in general, we're looking for products that have some preliminary shelf life or manufacturing packaging complete. And again, I think this is something where you kind of reach out to us and we figure out if what you have is appropriate for the program, or if we want you to go to the R33 program for additional studies.
Great. And with that, Mike, those were all of the questions that we received. Are there any closing remarks or any additional questions from the audience that we can take for our last few minutes together? Oh, a couple more questions. If no fund is coming to PI, do we have to go through our academic institution during the grant application?
That's a good question, and I'll leave it up to you to figure that out at your own academic institution. So this is services. So you're requesting services. There will be no funds being transferred to the institution. So you just have to check with your grants management office to clarify your specific process.
Great. And I believe, okay, if the recipient is a for-profit organization, will the service it receives be considered R&D expenditures to the company?
You'd have to check with your own legal to figure that out. I have no idea.
Okay, I believe that concludes our questions, unless a couple more pop in. One additional, would you consider companies offering software as a service for quality management system, CRO and CMOs?
Software as a service is appropriate, and again, speak to us and we'll figure it out. And the reoccurring theme as my closing remarks, we like to speak to you and learn about what you're doing. We have not only the RTI experts here, but also the NHLBI staff who are available to help you understand what the NHLBI is looking for to fund and where our priorities lay, and also give you suggestions on additional funding sources outside of the Catalyze program that might be appropriate.
Great. Okay. And with that, I think we'll kind of wrap up our question and answer period. Thank you so much, Mike, for giving such an informative presentation about our new adventure into preclinical services. So as we wrap up, attendees, please notice the evaluation poll that's popped up on your screen. It does really help us. I can tell you for sure, because I serve on the evaluation side at RTI. That sort of compiles all of your responses and makes changes to our upcoming seminars based on your responses. So the more information you can provide, the better. And just in closing, remember our EOI deadline is March 17th. You can always learn more about both the product definition program as well as the preclinical services program on our website, nhlbicatalyze.org. And please reach out to us as Mike is offering. Our email address is nhlbi_catalyze@mail.nih.gov. And with that, I wish you a very nice rest of your day.